All right, y'all. So basically, I have my friend Joshua D. Abel. Is it Abel or Abel?
Abel.
Abel. All right, and he's a success coach. He normally works with entrepreneurs, but he helps them with past trauma and fear. And he helps them deal with that so they can achieve their goals in their life. All right. So basically, I'm gonna find out a little bit more about him. What got him started and what he does, and why he does what he does, and then we're kind of gonna go into how he helps people, right? So hopefully, you'll get some benefit out of this interview. All right, bro. So can you tell us, basically, like, give us a story on how you got into what you're doing? Why you do what you do, so we can know where you're coming from, and what drives you to want to put this value out there.
Awesome, man. Absolutely. So, I'm originally from St. Louis, and I've always kind of pictured myself as having a global impact, something that would create a positive impact on people around the world. And I thought that my journey would lead me to become a world famous actor. So I followed that passion to LA. I worked on film and television and things like that. And while I was out there, it was the first time I'd ever lived on my own. And I started really coming to and exploring new things and things like that. But eventually I got onto a path of drugs and alcohol. And that took me over a decade down a really, really dark road. At the very end of it, I was homeless. I was in jail. I didn't have a nickel to my name. I had been tossed out of a bunch of places to live, lost all my jobs, and I was really at the very bottom of life. And before that, I'd always been an entrepreneur. I'd always felt that I had more to give than just working a typical 9 to 5 job. And I'd had my own companies, helping people with digital marketing and finance, and health coaching. But once I went through that personal struggle, once I really hit that rock bottom, I kind of put myself out in the universe and asked it. I'm like, what do you want me to do? I mean, I've been given a second chance at life, essentially. And, how can I create the biggest impact? How can I help more people? And so I decided to use my skills in finance and entrepreneurship and business, and actually dive deeper into how it affects people more on a personal level, how they can create success from within and actually have that transcend into various aspects of their life. Because if you're only working on the business aspect of it, that's only about 20% of the equation. And the rest of it comes from, how you're feeling, the traumas that you've gone through and how you can overcome those. And once you start working on that, then every other aspect of your life actually seems to make a shift and start generating more success and positivity, just by working from the inside out.
Okay, that's what's up, man. So what would you say is like some of the like typical like challenges or problems people come to you with? Like, what do you see come up the most consistently as far as like maybe a fear or a past trauma that is holding people back in their lives, their business? What are some like the main ones you notice or see?
Well, there is a huge stigma around money. People either have a fear of failure or a fear of success, and it tends to ignite very early on in childhood. A lot of people who were brought up middle class or lower class are given the impression that in order to become financially successful, they have to either stab someone in the back, they've got to crawl over people, money is the root of evil, you have to do bad things in order to become financially successful. And that actually is opposite of our inherent values of, showing kindness and showing respect and showing love. And so a lot of people that I talk to have that disconnect. They have that mindset that in order to become successful, you have to do bad things. And so they don't want to do that. And then there's also the fear of rejection surrounded by money. So they have a fear of success because they're going to be rejected by their friends, their family, people they surround themselves with, because they were all brought up the same way, to have that connection between having money and, being a bad person. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you've got a fear of failure, which, when you boil it down, is another form of fear of rejection, and so people won't even try. So I believe that a lot of the fears, when you boil it down, the baseline fear for most people is rejection. And so in overcoming that and understanding where it comes from, where that mindset actually originated from, then and start working on that on a deeper level, then you can actually overcome those fears quicker.
Okay, got you. So you said the main are fear of rejection, fear of failure, and you said fear of success.
Absolutely.
I think because I know fear of failure, fear of rejection. I see that a lot as well when I'm dealing with people and helping people. But the fear of success one, that one is kind of unique. Can you kind of go into that a little bit more?
Absolutely. Well, the fear of success, when we're brought up in childhood, if you are, surrounded by an environment of people, for example, I was always taught that in order to be successful, you've got to be ruthless. You've got to be cutthroat. You've got to be, you know, uh, take no prisoners, and all of those create a negative image in my mind, and or did. And until age 11, our prefrontal cortex is still developing, and so we kind of form all of those values based on what we're fed. And it's not our parents' fault. They were probably brought up the same way, but that's how that that wheel just keeps spinning, and it passes on from generation to generation. However, in shifting your mindset and surrounding yourself with the right people, you actually understand that it's helping others solve problems. It's helping others create solutions that actually generates success. But a lot of people don't understand that. They feel that in working the 9 to 5, having a stable job that brings in a steady paycheck is the way to go and to be successful. However, that really limits them in what their full potential actually is. But because of the way that they were programmed, they allow that mindset to just kind of take hold, and it creates an understanding within them that this is who I am, this is all I can be, and that's it. And that's a real shame. I mean, it really is disingenuous to other people and to yourself. And the only way to break that and to create the success that you're actually uh, able to create is to shift that mindset, work on those traumatic events, and actually build what you want to build.
Got you, got you. So as far as like traumatic events, like what would you say are like some examples that like that maybe some things that people should pay attention to are big deals because maybe like me, there might be some things that might be considered past traumatic events, but I may just ignore them or whatever. But what would you say are like some examples of some things maybe people just kind of just leave in the shadows or whatever, but they should address and look at and what I mean and handle.
Absolutely. Well, it depends on what area of your life you're really wanting to focus on. And I would highly suggest that people focus on one area of their life at a time. Um, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people get caught in this whirlwind of wanting to change everything all at once. And so my first suggestion would be to focus on one area. I know about 2 years ago, after I'd come out of that dark hole, one of the first areas I wanted to work on was my health. You know, I was 70 pounds overweight, and I really wanted to focus on that. But I mean, I had so many other things that I wanted to improve. However, in focusing on that one area, other areas of my life started to improving. So definitely just focus on one. But when it comes to focusing on that, you know, any little instance that happened in your life could be a potential past trauma. It's essentially an event that has happened that causes a negative reaction within your life. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something that, it doesn't have to be like something crazy like an abusive relationship or, you know, molestation or anything like that. It could be something so minor. For instance, when I was younger, my mom took me out clothes shopping. And I was at kind of an awkward stage in my life, and she took me into the boys section and bought me a pair of husky pants. And to me, I equated the word husky with being fat. And then, you know, my mom always put a negative connotation around being fat. And so I immediately compartmentalized that and stuck it in the back of my head. And so for, you know, years and years and years, I would do anything not to get fat. And then here I was like 25 years later, 70 pounds overweight. And, you know, I was just, you know, on my road to, you know, getting into a healthier position. And that popped in my head. And so I equated, you know, my pant size, the number on the scale, and allowed that to dictate how I viewed myself in the mirror. And so that seemingly really small event had a huge impact on my psychological being and how I viewed myself for years to come. And I didn't even realize it. And so in, you know, actually figuring that out and, you know, doing some work on that, reframing it and repositioning myself, you know, I was able to change my mindset and do the work that I needed to improve that self-confidence and actually feel better about myself. But in isolating that single incident, you know, I was able to frame it, I was able to pinpoint it, and then, you know, do some meditation work, do some reframing, and change how that event affected me and how I felt about me.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, cool. So let's say somebody, you know, they like, okay, I have these fears, I have these blockages, these things that are holding me back from achieving my goals, and but they don't know what to know how to go about overcoming them or dealing with them or whatever. Maybe try searching online, a whole bunch of information. Where do I start, right? So let's say they come to you and they're like, okay, man, you know, how can you help me overcome my fears and deal with my past trauma so I can start, you know, hitting my goals, you know? So what would you do for them, or what process would you put them through to help them with that?
Great question. So initially what we would need to do is we would need to isolate the fear. We would need to figure out exactly what it is you're afraid of. I was watching a couple of your videos before the interview, and one of the things that I heard you say, I think a couple of times actually, was that you were known as the shy guy.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, why do you think you were the shy guy?
Looking back at it, I would say it was because I was basically afraid to express myself. I would kind of just, you know, be an observer. You know, when in a social circle or a social context, I'll be more of an observer. I wouldn't voice my opinion. If I did try to talk, it would be, you know, like maybe like short, short little things here. I just wouldn't there wouldn't be much certainty or confidence, through the communication. It'd be more like a just trying to say something so nobody, picks on me or whatever, you know what I mean? Or try to, just try to do something, but it didn't come naturally. I wasn't naturally able to just socialize and, if I liked a girl or whatever, I wasn't able to like express myself properly so she could see my personality. And, so there was what it felt like was there was something blocking me because obviously I wanted to relate to others and I wanted to express myself, but it felt like there was a block. So girls would they would say, "Oh, are you shy?" I would hear that and stuff like that, and I didn't like it, but there wasn't, I didn't know what to do. I was, pretty young back then, and did it, I just, I kind of accepted it as a personality trait, and then as I got older, I realized, I don't have to, I don't have to be that way. I can become more extroverted. I can figure out how to express myself. So I kind of went through my own process, but yeah, back then definitely I was very like inhibited as far as like my ability to communicate.
Interesting. And where that did it cause any fear or anxiety when you would go up and try and talk to a girl?
Yeah, so definitely the fear was there because I would say the fear of saying, the fear of doing the wrong thing, the fear of looking looking scared, like I didn't want her to see me looking like I was nervous, looking like I was anxious, the fear of opening up, being vulnerable, that was there. Definitely I remember like, in certain situations I'd be sweating, because I was like so nervous or whatever you want to call it. Um, yeah, so it was just very, I definitely wasn't comfortable, communicating or comfortable being around girls. And so if you're not comfortable, you're not going to be able to express yourself or show your personality or, you know what I mean? So yeah,
Absolutely. How do you remember when you first started feeling like that?
it seems like it was, I would say, it seems like it started or it's more, um, visible in my head looking back at it like around middle school, like the beginning of middle school, so like sixth grade, probably was like what is that, you 12 or something like that, yeah, around there.
Okay. So around puberty.
Yeah, yeah,
What about before then? Were you able to talk to girls?
yeah. Before then, like, I from what I remember, like I was a lot more social. It didn't really seem like so much a problem before then. Maybe I wasn't aware of it as much or paying attention to it as much. I don't know if that's what it was. Maybe when I got in middle school, that's when I became more self-conscious or whatever. But yeah, I remember it more so being an issue in middle school. Like if you're talking about like a elementary school or as like a toddler or a kid, like I remember being okay, like being able to socialize, and I don't remember being an issue. But middle school for sure, I remember like just not I wasn't happy with my social ability or my social skills in middle school, and
What was it about your social skills that you didn't like?
just wasn't able to be, how I saw myself communicating and being and acting. I wasn't able to be that. Like a very limited version of that, very inhibited, like constricted version. You know what I mean? Like it just was.
Mhm.
I wasn't able to. A good thing, like when I think about it, like I would always go home and like it would be like, man, I wish I would have did this or wish I would have said this, but in the moment I could never. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because go home, you're comfortable at home, so you can be exactly how you want to be. But when I was in school, it was like the complete opposite, right? Like as I said, girls would say, "Oh, are you shy?" or "Why are you so quiet?" I would hear stuff like that all the time. So
Did you change schools, go from an elementary school to a different middle school?
Yeah. So actually, I ended up going. This is actually that's actually a perfect question because I ended up going to a school that I did not want to go, like
Hmm.
art school. So like an art school, like basically they have kids like playing music or drawing or dancing stuff like that. And me, I was more of like I want to play basketball. You know? So when I went to that school, I specifically remembering like basically resenting it or hating the idea that I had to go to that school. And so, obviously, if your parent tells you gotta go, you gotta go. And so I just went and tried to deal with it. But yeah, I definitely did not want to be at that school.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, why did your parents make you go to an art school rather than a regular middle school? Did they give you a reason?
Yeah, so basically that's the art school was like a high rated school, so like I guess like a school, and then the other option like the public school I was supposed to go to was either a C or a D school. Right.
Mm,
So basically, they knew that if I went to this art school, I would be around a better crowd, better teachers. It would be from like a mature outlook, it would be the better option. But for me as a kid, it was like torture almost.
sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that actually kind of makes sense. You went from an environment where you were comfortable, you could relate to other people, to an environment where, you know, you you were completely on the other end of the spectrum. I mean, you wanted to be in a sports related environment, um, and yet you were tossed against your will into an environment that you couldn't really relate to.
Yeah.
And so, what's the natural instinct to uh, kind of protect yourself against being in an uncomfortable environment?
Yeah.
It's kind of to shut down and kind of get reserved. And so, forming that connection between the transition to a place that you were comfortable to an uncomfortable environment could have definitely played a big part in why your personality changed to where you weren't able to communicate effectively with people of the opposite sex.
Mhm.
how how are your relationships with guys in that environment?
I would say with guys, it's definitely way better than with girls. And the way I would describe it is I just had like a few friends, like a small circle of friends, but we were really cool. So it's not like I was like the most popular guy or had a bunch of friends, no, but I did have a few friends and we kind of were just really cool. So that's kind of how it was, and they were all guys pretty much.
Gotcha. So we've kind of pinpointed where that trauma occurred.
Hmm.
So that would be that's the first step. We've pinpointed it. And I like what you said about your parents understanding the importance of going to a better school. And so, for someone who hasn't overcome come this like you have, I would work with them in reframing their mindset in that transitional period, because we've isolated that trauma, and then the next step would be to reframe it and repurpose it to create more of a positive impact, a positive mindset, and then start working on the actual action steps in being able to openly and effectively communicate with people of the opposite sex.
Okay, yeah, so that makes sense. So basically, like if someone has a fear or an internal conflict or something, what you're saying is if they go back and look at their past, they can kind of find where it started and then reframe how at it, and then it will help them like release it basically. In a,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's really important, when you're actually in this process, to get an outside objective opinion. Because when you're in the middle of something, and this clearly, that you know, when you're in the middle of something, you can't really get an objective look on it. You know, you're always looking at it from your own perspective. And so that's why reaching out to a coach or a therapist, or, you know, someone who is able to give you a that objective opinion and help you, you know, kind of look at it from a different perspective and look at it from um, a way a way to reframe it so that it serves you rather than, you know, hinders you is really important.
Yeah, perfect, brother. I appreciate you basically kind of showed how you deal with those fears and those traumas as opposed to just telling us. So I think that was perfect actually. So yeah, man. So pretty much, we got to find out, who you are, why you do what you do. You kind of, told us, okay, these are some of the things that people are happy with, as far as like their goals and stuff like that. And you kind of broken down how you help people do that. So is there anything else that you think would benefit or something we should touch on just to maybe just put the icing on the cake, or just or maybe something that you've been researching, innovating with right now, or anything else we should add?
I've been, really communicating a lot in a number of different entrepreneur groups, and this affects, you know, people across the board, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. Um, Someone had made a post, you know, what's your biggest fear? And the number of people who actually commented, I don't have any fear, um, are really in denial. I mean, fear is a natural part of life. However, it doesn't have to hinder someone to achieving their goals, whether it's to get the date, whether it's to build a business, whether it's to, you know, become financially successful. You know, your goals are achievable. And I've actually kind of adopted the model that it's not only my right to be successful, it's my obligation, because we all have something that we can offer the world. And to allow something as silly as fear to keep us from achieving, you know, what we were put on this earth to do is not only a disappointment, but it's selfish. And, you know, whatever your goals are, whatever you believe that your purpose is, it's imperative, especially in today's world, that you work to achieve that. There's going to be failures, there's going to be setbacks. I mean, you've had them, I've definitely had them. But in actually digging deep and understanding who you are as a person, and, you know, the magnitude of effect that you can have on other people, and actually doing something to achieve that is it, it's inspirational, and it's your obligation.
Yeah, man, I agree 100%. And I'm actually in a place where I'm actively doing that. Like I've found my passion, I found my purpose, and once you find it, man, it's just you just have so much energy and so much motivation put out value, just do things. I feel like people when they're like lazy or not motivated, it's because they're doing these things they don't want to do. They're
Mhm.
not been going after their purpose or their a lot of it is what you said, fears, past traumas, holding them back. And there's some people who haven't even really looked into it, like what is my purpose? What is my passion? So that's something to think about as well. But anyway, man, I appreciate you for coming on and sharing what you do, and giving us value, helping us look at these different topics that are necessary to look at when it comes to success, life, business, relations. How can people get in contact with you if they would like, further help on, their fears or trauma or whatever?
Absolutely, man. Hit me up on Facebook, Joshua D. Abel Coaching. I'm happy to, you know, lend an ear. I do offer a complimentary strategy session so that we can really dig deep, find out what's holding you back, and see where we can go to, you know, take you to the next level. But on a credit to you, man. You know, I've you know, been following you for a little while now, dude. You're moving it. You're shaking it. I love it. I love all the stuff that you're putting out, and you know, I'm sure that you're helping a lot of people, you know, accomplish things that, you know, they didn't really think they were able to do. So much respect, man.
Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate you, man. So yeah, man, let's see if we can wrap this up. Let's see, maybe we might do like a part two or something, because I think we could go into a lot more. We kind of scratched the surface, right? So maybe at some point we'll do a part two. But I appreciate you for coming on, and thank y'all for watching, and have a good night.
Cheers.